If you are watching this video right now, it is not a coincidence, it is not random, and it is not something that happened by accident, because there is a reason this message reached you at this exact moment in your life, and the reason is simple but powerful. God wants you to hear something that your heart has been waiting for, something your spirit has been quietly praying about, something that you may have almost given up hope on. Because the truth is, you have been through a season where things felt slow, where doors seemed closed, where money looked tight, where opportunities seemed far away, and where you sometimes wondered if your prayers were even being heard. But God is saying today that He has seen every moment of your struggle, He has heard every prayer you whispered in the night, and He has watched every tear that fell when you felt like no one else understood what you were going through. And now the season you have been in is about to shift in a way you did not expect. Because the blessing that is coming toward you will not come from the place you were looking, it will not come from the person you thought would help you, and it will not come from the opportunity you were chasing. Instead, it will come from an unexpected place, a place that you never imagined could become the channel of your financial breakthrough, because God often works in ways that surprise us. In ways that remind us that His power is greater than our plans, and that His timing is always more perfect than our expectations. And right now there is something already moving behind the scenes of your life, something that you cannot see yet but that is already being prepared, because God has been arranging situations, connecting people, and aligning circumstances in ways that will eventually lead to a financial door opening for you. And when it happens, you will realize that what once looked like delay was actually preparation, what once looked like silence was actually God working quietly behind the curtain of your life, because sometimes the greatest blessings are not the ones we see coming but the ones that appear suddenly when the time is right. And God is saying that the money that is coming toward you will not only surprise you but it will also restore something inside your heart that the struggles of the past tried to break. Because when you go through seasons of financial pressure, it can slowly drain your confidence. It can slowly fill your mind with doubt, and it can slowly make you feel like you are always one step behind. But God is reminding you that your story is not defined by the season you are in right now, because a new chapter is already being written, and in that chapter provision will replace pressure, opportunity will replace limitation, and unexpected favor will begin to appear in places you never looked before. And what you must understand right now is that sometimes the blessing you are waiting for is already on its way, but it is traveling through a path that you cannot see yet, because God often uses people who do not even know they are part of your miracle. He uses situations that at first seem ordinary, and He uses moments that feel small but eventually lead to something big, and that is why you must not allow discouragement to take root in your heart, because discouragement can blind you to the opportunities that are already forming around you. And right now there may be a conversation about to happen, a connection about to form, or an idea about to enter your mind that will become the beginning of a financial shift in your life, because God has a way of placing the right opportunity in front of the right person at the right moment, and the moment for you is getting closer than you think. But the most powerful part of this message is not just that money is coming, it is that the source of this blessing will be unexpected, meaning it will remind you that the help you needed was never limited to the places you were looking. Because God is able to open doors that no human effort could force open, He is able to bring provision from directions that logic cannot predict, and He is able to place resources in your hands in ways that leave you standing in quiet amazement. Because when God decides to bless someone, He does not need perfect circumstances, He does not need the approval of the world, and He does not need a long explanation for how things will work. All He needs is the right moment, and when that moment arrives, everything can change faster than you ever expected. And there are some people listening right now who have been carrying financial stress for longer than anyone around them realizes, because on the outside you try to remain strong, you try to keep moving forward, you try to keep faith alive, but deep inside there were moments when you felt tired of the pressure, tired of the waiting, and tired of wondering when relief would finally come, but God is saying that your endurance has not gone unnoticed and your patience has not been wasted, because the very season that tested you has also been shaping you into someone ready to handle the blessing that is approaching, and when the unexpected opportunity appears you will not only recognize it but you will also know how to use it wisely, because the struggles you faced taught you lessons that comfort never could. And those lessons are preparing you for a future where you will no longer live under the same financial fear that once tried to control your thoughts, because there is something powerful about the moment when a person finally realizes that God has been guiding their path even during the times when nothing seemed to make sense, and that realization changes the way you see every challenge, every delay, and every closed door, because you begin to understand that sometimes a closed door is not rejection but redirection toward a place where something greater is waiting. And right now your life may feel like it has been moving through a quiet season, a season where nothing dramatic seemed to be happening, but quiet seasons are often the moments when the most important preparations are taking place. Because while you were simply trying to survive day by day, God was arranging something that would eventually bring relief into your life, and the moment that blessing appears you will look back and realize that every step of the journey had a purpose. Even the painful ones, even the confusing ones, because God never wastes a season in the life of someone who continues to believe even when the evidence is not yet visible. And that is why this message reached you today, because sometimes God sends a reminder right before the breakthrough arrives, reminder that your hope should remain alive and your faith should remain steady, because the story is not over yet and the chapter you are entering will look very different from the one you have been living in, and somewhere not far from where you are right now there is an opportunity forming, a conversation preparing to happen, or a connection about to appear that will become the unexpected channel through which financial help reaches you, and when it finally arrives it will feel almost unbelievable at first, because it will come from a direction you did not predict. But in that moment you will understand that God was working all along even when you could not see the full picture. And that realization will bring a sense of peace that money alone could never give. Because the greatest blessing is not just the provision itself but the reminder that you were never forgotten, never abandoned, and never outside the reach of God's guidance. And the moment you realize that truth, something inside you becomes stronger than before, because you no longer see yourself as someone struggling alone but as someone walking through a process that is gradually leading toward a future filled with new possibilities. And those possibilities are closer than you think right now, closer than your doubts suggest, and closer than your fears are willing to believe, because God is saying clearly in this moment that the money you have been praying about is already moving through a path that you could not have predicted, and when it reaches you it will be the beginning of a new level of stability and confidence in your life. So keep your heart open, keep your faith steady, and keep moving forward with the quiet confidence that something unexpected is already on its way toward you. As you continue listening to this message, understand that what is happening in your life right now is not random, and the delays you have experienced were not meant to destroy you but to prepare you for something that is about to enter your life in a way you never expected. Because God is saying that the reason the blessing is coming from an unexpected place is because He wanted you to understand that your future was never limited to the small number of opportunities you could see with your own eyes, And many times in life people begin to believe that their financial future depends only on the job they have, the people they know, or the opportunities they can currently see around them. But God's plans are always bigger than human expectations, and there are doors that exist which you do not even know about yet. There are people who are about to enter your life who have never met you before but who will still become part of your story, and there are ideas that have not yet come into your mind but will soon arrive at exactly the right moment, and these things together will form the unexpected path through which money will begin to flow into your life, because sometimes God chooses surprising paths so that when the blessing finally appears you will recognize that it could only have happened through divine timing and guidance. And right now many people listening to this message have been carrying a quiet financial pressure that others around them may not fully understand, because when you are facing financial uncertainty it can affect the way you sleep, the way you think, and even the way you see your own future, and there may have been nights when you wondered how things would work out, nights when you asked God for help even though you did not know exactly where that help could come from, but God heard those prayers even when the answer did not appear immediately. Because sometimes God allows a season of waiting so that when the breakthrough arrives you will be strong enough to manage it wisely and humble enough to recognize where it truly came from. And the truth is that while you were worrying about how things would happen, God was already preparing something that your mind could not yet imagine, because He can use situations that seem ordinary at first to create extraordinary results later, and there may soon be a moment in your life that feels small at first, maybe a conversation, a message, a suggestion, or an opportunity that does not look very big in the beginning, but that moment will slowly grow into something far more important than you first realized, because the unexpected blessing that is approaching your life will not necessarily arrive in a dramatic way. Sometimes it begins quietly, almost like a small seed being planted, but that seed grows into something that changes your financial direction in ways you did not expect. And when that moment happens you may even look back and realize that the opportunity had been forming for longer than you realized, because God often prepares things long before we notice them, and this is why you must remain open to possibilities that appear in front of you even if they do not match the exact plan you once imagined, because the blessing coming toward you may look different from what you originally expected. And if you remain open, aware, and willing to step forward when the opportunity appears, you will find yourself walking into a situation that begins to solve the very financial pressure you have been carrying, because God is not only capable of providing for your needs but also capable of guiding your steps toward the exact place where provision already exists. And many people miss their breakthrough because they become so focused on one specific door that they ignore the other doors quietly opening around them. But God is saying that the reason this blessing will come from an unexpected place is because it will expand your vision and remind you that your life is not confined to the limits you once believed in. And when this unexpected provision arrives it will also restore a sense of hope inside you that may have slowly faded during the difficult season you have been walking through, because financial pressure can slowly wear down a person's confidence and make them feel as if progress is always just out of reach. But God is reminding you that progress can sometimes happen suddenly after a long season of waiting, and the moment that shift begins it will feel like the weight you have been carrying is finally beginning to lift, because the same God who watched over you during the hardest days is the same God who is now preparing to guide you into a better season, And what makes this moment even more powerful is that when the unexpected money arrives, it will not only help solve a practical need, but it will also remind you that you were never alone during the difficult journey. Because every prayer you whispered, every moment you held on to hope, and every step you took forward even when things felt uncertain has brought you closer to the moment where the answer begins to appear. And when that moment comes, you will realize that God was quietly arranging pieces of your future long before you understood how they would fit together, and that realization will strengthen your faith in ways that no simple explanation ever could. Because when you see something arrive in your life that you could not have planned by yourself, you begin to understand the depth of God's ability to guide your path, and that understanding creates a peace that goes far beyond financial relief, because you begin to trust that the same guidance that brought this blessing into your life will continue to guide you in the future as well. And right now, somewhere beyond your sight, there are circumstances slowly aligning in a way that will eventually connect to your life at the right moment. And when that connection happens, you will see clearly that what once looked like a long season of waiting was actually the path that led you directly to the unexpected place where your blessing was waiting all along. And as this message continues, there is something deeper that God wants you to understand about the season you have been walking through. Because the truth is that the waiting period you experienced was not meant to break you, but to strengthen something inside you that you will need in the next chapter of your life. Because when unexpected money enters someone's life, it also requires wisdom, patience, and a clear mind to handle it correctly. And God has been shaping those qualities inside you during the very moments when you felt like nothing was moving forward, because sometimes the greatest preparation happens during the quiet seasons when progress is not immediately visible. And there were days when you wondered if your hard work, your prayers, and your efforts were making any difference at all, but God is saying that every step you took during that difficult time was building a foundation that will soon support the blessing that is approaching your life, because blessings that arrive suddenly still require preparation behind the scenes, and that preparation has been happening within your character, your mindset, and your ability to remain faithful even when circumstances were not easy. And right now there are people listening who have been feeling as if their financial situation has been stuck in the same place for too long, as if progress keeps slowing down right when it begins, and that kind of experience can slowly create frustration and doubt inside a person's heart. But God is reminding you that what looks like stagnation on the surface is not always the full story. Because while you were focusing on the visible problems, God was already creating invisible solutions. And those solutions are slowly moving closer to the moment where they will become visible in your life. And when that moment arrives, it will feel like a sudden shift, almost like a door opening in a place where you never expected to find one. And the reason it will feel unexpected is because God intentionally chose a path that would remind you that your future does not depend only on the plans you created for yourself, but also on the opportunities He is capable of placing in your path at the right time. And there may soon be a moment when someone reaches out to you, when a new idea enters your mind, or when an opportunity appears that at first seems small but carries the potential to grow into something meaningful. And that moment will be important because it will represent the beginning of the financial change that you have been praying for. And many times God begins a breakthrough with something simple, because simple beginnings allow you to step forward with humility and awareness rather than pride or distraction. And when you approach the opportunity with gratitude and patience, it begins to grow into something larger than you originally imagined, because God often turns small openings into large doors once a person shows the willingness to walk through them with faith and responsibility. And the most powerful part of this process is that the blessing will remind you that your life was never limited to the difficulties you experienced before. Because the past season may have convinced you that progress was slow or that resources were always just out of reach, but the new season will begin to reveal that there were possibilities waiting for you all along, possibilities that simply needed the right moment to appear, and the moment is closer now than it has ever been before, because every challenge you faced has been shaping your perspective and strengthening your resilience, and those qualities will allow you to handle the unexpected blessing in a way that creates stability instead of temporary relief. Because God is not only interested in giving you a momentary breakthrough but also in guiding you toward a future where your financial situation becomes stronger and more secure over time, and that is why the opportunity that appears may also come with a lesson, responsibility, or a decision that will help you grow even further, because true blessings often arrive together with new levels of wisdom and awareness. And as you step into that moment, you will begin to recognize that the journey you walked through was not meaningless after all, because every challenge, every delay, and every moment of uncertainty was quietly preparing you for the day when the unexpected blessing would finally arrive and begin changing the direction of your life. And when that moment happens, you will feel something shift inside your heart as well, because you will no longer see your past struggles as signs of failure but as steps that led you toward the exact place where your breakthrough was waiting. And that realization will bring a deeper sense of gratitude and confidence into your life. Because you will understand that even when the road felt uncertain, you were still being guided step by step toward the opportunity that is now moving closer to you with every passing moment. As this message continues, there is something even more important that God wants you to understand about the blessing that is moving toward your life. Because when money comes from an unexpected place, it is not only about financial relief but also about restoring your confidence, restoring your peace, and reminding you that your life is still guided by a purpose greater than the difficulties you have faced. And there were moments in the past when you felt as if everything was moving slowly, as if the doors you knocked on remained closed, and as if the effort you were putting into your life was not producing the results you hoped for. But God is saying that even during those quiet and frustrating moments, He was still watching over your journey, still arranging circumstances, and still preparing a path that would eventually lead to the blessing you are about to experience. Because sometimes what looks like a delay is actually protection, sometimes what looks like rejection is actually redirection, and sometimes what feels like a long period of waiting is actually the time needed for something better to be prepared behind the scenes. And many people lose hope during the waiting season because they cannot see what God is doing beyond their current situation, but the truth is that God's plans often unfold quietly before they become visible, and right now there are things aligning in your life that you cannot fully see yet, but they are slowly moving you closer to the moment when the unexpected financial opportunity will finally appear. And when it does, you will realize that the timing was more perfect than anything you could have planned yourself, because God's timing often brings together the right opportunity, the right people, and the right moment in a way that human effort alone could never achieve. And that is why the blessing coming toward you will feel different from the opportunities you chased before, because this time it will arrive with a sense of peace and clarity that tells you deep inside that something meaningful is beginning to unfold. And the most powerful part of this moment will be the realization that the help you needed was already being prepared long before you even knew where to look for it. Because God has a way of using unexpected channels to deliver exactly what a person needs at the moment they need it most. And that channel could be a new opportunity, a surprising connection, a creative idea, or even a situation that initially seemed unrelated to your financial situation but slowly becomes the doorway to something greater. And when that moment happens, you will look back and understand that the difficult season you walked through was actually shaping your perspective and strengthening your faith so that you could recognize the blessing when it finally appeared, because sometimes if a blessing arrives too early, a person may not fully appreciate it or use it wisely, but when it arrives after a season of struggle, it carries a deeper meaning and a stronger impact. And that is exactly what God has been preparing in your life. Because the unexpected money that is coming will not only solve a temporary problem but will also help you step into a new level of stability and possibility, and that shift will change the way you see your future. Because instead of feeling trapped by limitations, you will begin to notice opportunities appearing in places you once overlooked. And this change in perspective will become one of the greatest gifts that comes with the blessing, because when a person begins to believe again that new doors can open, their entire mindset begins to expand, and with that expansion comes creativity, motivation, and the courage to step forward when new chances appear, and God is saying that this is the direction your life is slowly moving toward right now. Even if you cannot yet see the full picture, because the pieces are still coming together in the background of your life, and every day brings you closer to the moment when the opportunity becomes clear and the unexpected provision finally reaches you. And when that moment arrives, it will remind you that the story of your life is still unfolding and that the chapter you are entering now will look very different from the one you have been living in before. Because the same God who allowed you to walk through the challenging season is also the God who is now opening a path that leads toward restoration, provision, and a renewed sense of hope for the future, and that future is closer than you think at this very moment.